in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up this week, could Cyprus learn from the Polish and German Neighbourhood Friendship Treaty?
In a very difficult circumstances for those very brave and courageous and looking into the future Poles and Germans who thought that despite what had happened in the past, the two nations living next door to each other need to start talking and needs a reconciliation.
We'll hear about a jazz workshop for all ages.
When the students come in or the participants come in at the beginning of the workshop, and when they leave, the level of ability, their ability has increased tenfold.
And the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development is looking to facilitate green investments in Cyprus.
And we are ready to provide financing for be it renewable energy, energy efficiency investments or related activities in Cyprus.
To mark the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Polish-German Good Neighbourliness and Friendship Treaty, the two embassies in Nicosia organised an event on the night of the Poland versus Germany football match in the Euros. In stark contrast to the violence that was seen at the start of the competition, Poles and Germans sat down together and socialised while watching the soccer. I asked the Polish ambassador, Barbara Tuga-Ereczyńska, and the German ambassador, Nicola von Schupp, about the significance of the treaty for their bilateral relations.
Before the treaty was signed 25 years ago, there was quite a long process that made it possible to have this treaty signed. And the process started back in the 60s in a very difficult circumstances for those very brave and courageous and looking into the future Poles and Germans who thought that despite what had happened in the past, the two nations living next door to each other need to start talking and needs a reconciliation. So since Poland regained its full independence, and that was in 1989, there have been already people that have invested a lot of their time, their authority, in order to have a dialogue between Poles and Germans. That's why it was possible to have this treaty signed only 2 years after Poland became an independent country. And that was a very important opening in our bilateral relations. It made it possible for establishing several bilateral institutions, which I find extremely important, between young people from Poland and Germany, and to have meetings, dialogues, cooperation, to better understand how we perceive our history, common and separate history. That also made it politically possible also for Germany to reunify their country. But also we received a very strong and unwavering support from Germany in our aspirations to join European institutions. Thanks to the German support, openness, we became a member of NATO. We became also a member of the European Union. All this would not be possible without very strong and dedicated friendship on the side of Germany and support.
So if I can come to you, Ambassador, it's very hard for young people these days to even understand the feeling that was there after the Second World War and in the maybe 2 decades that followed prior to this agreement. Can you shed some light on that?
Yes, as we said, the treaty brought a big change from confrontation to cooperation, and this went very fast, and Barbara has described it. In a way, Germany and Poland, when you think throughout the centuries, there was always strong cooperation in the field of economics, culture, politics. Polish king was also Kurfürst of Saxony and vice versa. There was always strong cooperation, but unfortunately this was broken off during the Second World War by the German side. And in the 90s, let's say, wise men ruled our two nations and, so to say, fostered the way in a cooperative way to come together. If I may say on a personal account, I'm proud that I wrote the first investment guide on Poland by the Association of German Industries in early 90s. I was a little pillar in this big bridge to come together. I remember me, at that time I was first time in Krakow and in Warsaw. It was bitterly cold, walking around meeting businessmen and even a vice minister. And this little guide, investment guide from 90 or 91, was a little step towards more cooperation. As I said before, now we are very close economic partners. Germany is the investment partner number one in Poland, and for Poland, Germany is trade partner number one. And I believe in economics. This brings together. I live in Cyprus, but I also live in Berlin. My wife and me, we know a lot of young Poles. They live in Berlin, they speak German, whether they are Germans, there's no difference. Yeah? And the same is true in Poland. I think also a lot of young Germans go to Poland and live there. And as we said, it's one economic and cultural space, in the best sense.
But do they understand the massive enmity that had to be overcome in the years after the World War? Because that, particularly in terms of Cyprus, is very important.
Of course, but I think the important thing is it's overcome. Yeah, it's something natural, and especially in a place as Cyprus. When I think about it, as I said it in my speech, I'm proud of this. You see, I was born December 59. Yeah, I was always interested in Eastern Europe, and I felt this sharp division of Europe, and that this was overcome in a way so quickly and so thoroughly makes us both proud. And then you come to this beautiful island, also with sharp division, and this is a long time later. It's still divided. You can't believe it. Yeah. And therefore we said with Mr. Eide, Cyprus can learn a lot from our cooperation in practical terms, and from also how Germany overcome our own division. Yeah? Cyprus is unique, but it's also not unique. Yeah? It's a special place, and especially countries like Poland and Germany, we can share with them. And this little event tonight is one first step in this direction.
Barbara, if I can come back to you, you mentioned in your speech that Cyprus could perhaps look at how Poland and Germany overcame their differences to become actually partners in a very successful friendship venture. What's your advice to the people of Cyprus?
You know, nobody can expect you to forget the past. And sometimes the past, not even your own, but your family, is quite difficult. But you live now, and your children will live tomorrow. And you need to open your mind. You need also to understand that there are different perspectives on the same event. And when you have people who have suffered, if they are prepared to talk to the other side and learn that the other side are not only perpetrators, but they also suffered in many other ways, there is a way of communicating, or at least respecting each other's experiences. I think it's extremely important to meet, to talk. It's very important to begin at schools. It's very important to let children see not only their own local family perspective, but to see the history of the island, of the whole country from a much broader point of view. Dialogue and goodwill is something that needs to be in the very beginning of everything. Yeah. And then, you know, as always, as I also mentioned in my speech earlier, you need courageous people. You need those who will not be afraid to be called traitors by their own. You need people who will not be afraid to be told that they are acting against their own nation, that they are rewriting history in the wrong way, and so on. Each society needs this type of people, but I've seen them here in Cyprus on both sides, so I am optimistic.
Well, we've been talking to the Ambassador of Poland and the Ambassador of Germany as they mark 25 years of their historic Friendship and Neighbourhood Treaty, which overcame all the enmity of World War II.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
Undoubtedly, the biggest story over the last week here in Cyprus has been the devastating forest fires. There was one in Paphos at the start of last weekend, which was fairly quickly brought under control. But then on Sunday, there was a fire in the beautiful Solea Valley in the Troodos Mountains. It spread literally like wildfire. For 4 days, teams of firefighters, volunteers, forestry department officials, in fact pretty well everyone who could muster the strength, tried to help to put out the blaze. The devastation has been terrible. Some 17 square kilometres of beautiful forest has been burnt to a cinder. The reforestation programme is something we hope to be talking about on next week's Cyprus News Digest. But lessons do need to be learned from this absolutely horrendous disaster. 2 firefighters lost their lives and other people were injured. It also became clear that Cyprus is not really very well organised and prepared for volunteers who want to come and help in these situations. It was only on the 4th day of the fire that they seemed to be being coordinated properly to try and put out the final few little smoking piles that could flare up if the wind got up. However, the disaster did bring a feeling of camaraderie to all different ages and groups of people. And Cyprus also received help in the form of aircraft from Greece, from the UK, from France, from Israel, from Italy. And at one point, finally it seemed that the authorities here would accept an offer from Turkey. In the end, however, that didn't come about because of conditions imposed, and a lot of people are criticising the fact that we let the forests burn instead of swallowing our pride and letting the Turks come to help us put them out.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
A jazz workshop is coming up in Cyprus shortly, and over from the US is Gene Aitken. We're going to talk to him and to Yanis Miralis, who is, let's say, the Cyprus contact this end. Gene, if we can start with you. 2nd year, I think, that you've come to Cyprus to do this. But
yes, it is. Right.
How did you get in the first place to travelling the world? And Cyprus is just one stop, I think, on a huge itinerary that takes in Asia particularly and many other countries, teaching jazz.
Well, I came over here many times to see what the possibilities were because I've been in Iraq and Afghanistan for about the last 10 years, roughly. And so I always wanted to do something here. And then the one time I came over, I somehow met Yanis through email, or he has one of his teachers that was one of my students. So we talked, and one thing led to another, and here we have our 2nd annual jazz workshop.
But you are actually a classically trained musician.
That's correct.
So how did the switch come?
There isn't a switch. The switch is that your foundations are always basically in classical. Jazz, rock, Latin are all styles off of basic foundations of music.
But you decided you'd like to teach. So
yes.
How did you get into that? And then it's not just teaching in a music school. It is, as I say, going and meeting people from all over the world who must, I suppose, all bring something of their own music and culture to the jazz they play.
Well, going back many years, I had no desire to teach because I was a professional musician, both classically and jazz. And at one point, oh my gosh, maybe when I was in my late 20s, one of the teachers said, with your experience, he said, you ought to consider going into teaching. And so I thought about it, and one thing led to another, and first thing I'm doing is teaching high school. And from there, I had no idea what happened. I moved to Germany and did my master's in Germany, and then finally went back to the United States and completed my doctorate.
Okay, Yanni, let's come on to you, because jazz workshops, we've had them before in Cyprus, but this one's a little bit different, isn't it?
Yes, this is a little bit different in philosophy. We are encouraging everybody who is interested in learning to play jazz or who is able to play jazz to come and attend the workshop. It's open to any musicians, let's say from 11, 12 years old until 80s. Actually, we are going to have some players who are retired amateur musicians who are coming this year, I just found out. So it's regardless of age, regardless of ability. The requirement is to be able to play an instrument at a decent level and be willing to learn and collaborate with others and be open in the heart and in the ears to learn this different language. And participants will be divided based on their level of ability in different groups. So there will be instruction on jazz improvisation, jazz harmony, and fundamentals of playing a wind instrument or singing based on their levels of ability. So participants will also perform in a group with other equal members. So this is a difference with other workshops that have been done in the past. And at the same time, having said that, we are also having professional musicians or advanced musicians at an advanced level who are coming to further improve their abilities and learn from well-qualified teachers from Cyprus and the United States and Europe, which we're very happy to have in the faculty this year.
So that would be like a masterclass?
Yes, yes.
Now, when you have people signing up, is there a limit on the number you can take?
Actually, there is no limit. We can accommodate, we haven't thought that it would be too huge, but we can accommodate anybody. So there are the facilities, there is the space, there are the teachers, there is, we are prepared for any number who signs up. And the registration can be done online. It's through the university website, European University Cyprus. The website, if you type Cyprus Jazz Workshop, European University Cyprus, they will come to the page where they can sign electronically, and they will get an email to come and audition on Saturday the 9th of July. And then they will be placed in different groups from the very first day, so they will know from Sunday when the workshop starts, where they are placed. And the workshop will start from 9 until the afternoon. And
so it's pretty full on between the 9th and the 14th of July. Now, you get people signing up, but you have no control over what instruments they play. So what happens if you get 50 trumpet players and nobody else? How does that work out?
It works out fine, yeah, because it doesn't matter what instrument you play. I mean, we take violin, whatever, accordion, I mean, we've had everything. So we just put them in the group based on the ability, and we go ahead. We've got music that covers every possible instrument that's
instrumentation. Last year we had a folk violinist who participated, a mandolin teacher, primary school teacher who never played jazz, in the workshops that Gene and his colleagues are doing in other countries. For example, in Lebanon they have oud. And so even a bouzouki player can come and attend and perform. They will learn the fundamentals, they will learn how to listen to, how to improvise, and they can apply it on their instrument.
The results must be astounding in some cases because it's such an extraordinary mix of instruments and players.
Right. When the students come in or the participants come in at the beginning of the workshop, and when they leave, the level of ability, their ability has increased tenfold. It's amazing.
And what about after the workshop? I know this is the second, Yanni, and you're hoping it will become an annual event. But what do these people do until the next one? Do they get together? Do they make bands and stay with their groups and start performing around the island?
Actually, what we have seen from last year is exactly this, that the participants, Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots, and last year we had somebody from Lebanon as well attending. This year we're having some people from Greece. So what we have seen last year, the first time that we organized it, is that the participants started a Facebook group themselves. They started inviting each other at their performances, recitals, gigs that each one was giving. They organized night outs for fun and socializing, and this kept on, and they still communicate from last year, and they're saying, oh yeah, we're getting ready, in 2 weeks we'll meet again, and of course socializing and learning from each other and sharing ideas, not only about music but about life in general, is a big part of this activity, this workshop.
Jean, last word to you. What would you say to a young person who is learning a musical instrument but has never even thought possibly about jazz? They've only done some classical training and possibly they're interested in rock. What will jazz and a workshop like this bring to them and to their view of music?
Well, their application of employing jazz in their training will help them greatly because it's all music, number one. Secondly, most of your jazz playing and rock playing is done without music. So that transfer from reading music to not having a piece of music in front of you, but actually using your ear is a great motivator and people have done great things as far as success doing this. So it has great applications. Yeah.
Which brings us back to your folk violinist, because I bet he didn't read music either.
No, exactly.
And I meant to ask you at the beginning, you said just somebody needs to be able to play an instrument to a reasonable level, but they don't need to read music.
No.
And actually, coming back to Ahmed, who was a person we're talking about, he was recording the rehearsals, he was recording the pieces that they were learning on a portable recorder, and he was studying them at home by ear because he had a very acute ear ability. He just needed to listen to a piece of music once or twice and he learned it, whereas others... So it's exactly what Jean mentioned, that in the classical world, unfortunately, we tend to focus on reading a score, whereas in the other styles of music, including folk, jazz, pop, is mainly using the ear. So it's interesting to learn from each other across the participants, learning from each other how to learn music and how to engage in music making and musical activities in one way or another, because nowadays in the music education world and in the schools there is a lot of push towards learning to play without a score, learning to play music by listening to it, and classical musicians learning from jazz musicians and vice versa, and jazz musicians can learn a lot from classical musicians as well. So all this helps you to become a better musician, full stop.
Okay, and there is still space, so remind us again, the European University of Cyprus Jazz Workshop?
Yes, it's taking place at the premises of European University Cyprus in Engomi, with air conditioning facilities because it's middle of July, 9th to the 14th of July. 9th, it's the auditions and the placement auditions where participants will be placed in different groups. And the instruction and the classes and everything starts on Sunday the 10th. Every day in the afternoon, there will be a small concert performed by teachers or participants, leading towards the final concert, which is on the 14th at night at the Cultural Center of the European University Cyprus. As I said, there is a website where people can register. There is a Facebook page, Cyprus Jazz Workshop. We should mention the cost is very low for what is provided, with having 9 or 10 faculty members from Europe and America and Cyprus. For 5 days, all that is 125 euros for 5 days, which is 25 euros per day, which is very minimal. We want to thank the American Embassy in Cyprus for their support in making this happen, and also Jazz Education Abroad, the organization which is also supporting organizing this and supporting our efforts, and we learn a lot from them, and we want to thank them all and we look forward in having as many people as possible and sharing music together.
That is Yannis Miralles from the European University and Jean Aitken, who will be one of the lead teachers from Jazz Education Abroad, who's in Cyprus for what promises to be a very exciting workshop.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Investing for a Greener Future in Cyprus was the title of a conference held last week in Nicosia. One of the keynote speakers was the head of the Cyprus office of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or the EBRD. He is Dr. Libor Kirkoska, and he joins us now. So what was your message to the conference?
Thank you very much, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to speak about what is EBRD's role in supporting green economy. The key message which I had was that sustainable energy investments is a core activity of our institution, and we are ready to provide financing for be it renewable energy, energy efficiency investments or related activities in Cyprus.
Presumably you're fairly well aware of how advanced Cyprus is, or perhaps not, in green development. Where would you say the emphasis should be put these days?
Of course, Cyprus is a relatively wealthy country compared to other countries where we operate, so our area of focus is naturally narrow, but at the same time there are huge potential opportunities in renewable energy production, and we are looking at potential financing of new photovoltaic power plants in Cyprus. And similarly, because of high electricity costs, there are again big opportunities to make energy savings in use of energy. And again, these are investments which we are ready and willing to do.
So it's mostly solar-powered energy?
Of course, Cyprus is an island blessed with a lot of sun, and it could be used to much greater extent than it is now.
How well versed are Cypriot business people, and particularly perhaps startups, in what financing is available from organisations like yours when it comes to the green economy?
Well, I think that Cypriot businesses, including startups but also established companies, are still suffering from the previous economic crisis. Many of them are over-leveraged and are struggling to repay their existing loans. So the single biggest challenge I see is for those companies to actually generate or create capacity to borrow more for investments which will save them money in the future and also help to save the planet. But at the moment they are sometimes struggling with, as I said, existing high debts.
And why should they go to the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development as opposed to their local bank? Are you giving preferential rates?
We provide financing at commercial terms, but we have more than 20 years of experience of financing such investments, so we are providing expertise both in terms of identifying where the investments give the biggest benefits, but also in structuring those loans on a project finance basis so that they are repaid from energy savings rather than, as used to be the case here in Cyprus, as simple real estate investments. I think that the structuring and expertise is the biggest benefit of working with EBRD.
And that is Dr. Libor Kirkoska, head of the Cyprus office of the EBRD. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.